Only removing in the comfort of your own home, and even then, just take a shower, because you're going to need it.
Welcome. You're listening to Nuditea, a podcast where we get naked with our feelings while drinking tea. I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Wendy, and on this podcast we talk about food, travel, adult feelings, just a wide scope of topics, anything that you're interested in. Today we are kind of doing a follow-up to our first ever episode recorded.
Year and a half follow-up.
Yeah. Yes. So, we are talking about other possibilities, other options that you might look into for sustainable period products. So the first episode that we ever made, we talked about the cult that Kim and I are a part of, which is the Diva cup cult. And I explored, after that time, another item, which is the Ziggy cup, which I mentioned in that episode, but at that point I had no experience with it. I didn't have it. And then I am also going to talk a little bit about reusable pads today.
And I'm just here to listen and maybe ask a few questions. So this is really Wendy's
You're
platform.
An important piece of this episode too, Kim.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, so which one are you more interested in? The reusable pads or the Ziggy cup?
Ziggy cup.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Ziggy cup is technically... Oh. We forgot tea. I'm drinking a mint tea.
I'm also drinking a mint tea.
You know what? These episodes can be whatever we want them to be.
That's
tea
true.
can come up whenever.
Okay.
Let me just restart. The Ziggy cup, which now that I think about it, should probably not be called a cup. It's more of a disc shape. I'm holding it for our video podcast watchers. Essentially, it's much less of that like cup shape than what we have with the Diva cup, and it sits differently in your body. It's supposed to function a little differently as well.
Can I, for people who can't see, there's like a honeycomb design. Is that just for aesthetic reasons, or is there a purpose for it?
I think the honeycomb design is to strengthen the actual layer of silicone that catches the blood, because this part is actually quite thin. So I think they risk you tearing it with your fingernails or something when you try to remove it or try to push it in if they didn't have a support structure. That is what I've read. I was also wondering about this. And it also comes up in some like review videos and articles why there's a honeycomb shape. It's for strength.
Okay.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, which why don't you know if you're listening to this podcast, the Diva cup is essentially you insert it into your vagina. There's like a suction type of mechanism where it kind of locks into place. It doesn't let fluid spill out unless it's too full. And then all your menstrual extrusions are caught in the cup, which is sitting in your vaginal canal. You don't feel it. It's fantastic. We're still Team Diva cup. Make no mistake.
Forever and always.
This is still a Diva cup cult. However, I wanted to branch out and try the Ziggy cup because the menstrual disc, instead of sitting in your vaginal canal, it actually kind of tips one end behind your cervix and the other end tucks in behind your pelvic bone. So it sits actually a little higher up, I guess you would say, than the Diva cup does. And it doesn't actually block your vaginal canal at all, which makes it possible to have sex while you're wearing the Ziggy cup, which is very intriguing to me, and I really want to try it for that reason alone. So I have used this, I think now for 3 or 4 periods, and I consistently revert back to using the Diva cup, because I think the Ziggy cup is meant for very specific body shapes, and they haven't accounted for that in the design of this menstrual disc. Because of the way this is designed to sit in the body, it doesn't actually accommodate as many body types as the Diva cup would. We were just saying how we think there's 2, potentially 3, I'm not sure about that, probably 2 Diva cup sizes that are available. One is for younger women who probably have not experienced birth and experienced birth, as in they haven't birthed anyone.
And are under 30, I think is the other thing they say.
Yeah, and then the other one is for women over a certain age or if they've given birth. There's only one size of the Ziggy disc cup, whatever you want to call it. And for me, I feel like it's not made for maybe more petite women, because the issue that I have with the Ziggy cup when I wear it is I can feel it getting tucked up behind my cervix, which is really, really close to your butthole, guys. Like, I've never gone up that far with my hand before inside my own body, because with the Diva cup, you never really have to go that far up.
Literally, like, sits lower than tampons sit.
Yeah, it's very non-intrusive in terms of where your hand has to go. But with the Ziggy cup, I think one con is, you have to stick your hand way up in there. You're literally basically touching your own taint from the inside. And then to kind of finish off the deal, you have to tuck the front portion of this little boat figure up behind your pelvic bone. And because the rim of this, like you just felt it, the rim is so thick and structured that it wants to be in this kind of open, long position. It's naturally an oval shape, but when it's inside of you, it's more like pushed up like this, especially if you're more petite. Then maybe your pelvic bone and the behind your cervix area is like a shorter distance.
And you think it, like, blood can easily, like, leak out the sides because of that kind of...
No, it's because it wants to pop back out like this. So it gets tucked up behind your pelvic bone. This is going to be hard to visualize for our audio listeners, but if you're watching this video, this hand, my middle finger is the pelvic bone, the back, my thumb is the cervix. What happens to me is it always slips out in front and essentially dumps everything that it's been catching right on out, and then it sits in this awkward position and slowly moves back down your vagina and wants to come out by itself. So I think just structurally there's some issues because of how thick and structured this band is that is supposed to be sealing everything in, and also the length and original shape that this is in makes it difficult to accommodate to more body sizes and shapes.
So basically, it kind of just looks like a diaphragm that's not actually built for the shape of your body. And I'm wondering, do the creators of the Ziggy cup want it to completely replace a Diva menstrual cup, or is it just in tandem with, hey, before you're having sex, if you want to have sex when you're on your period, put this in? Or is it for the lighter days? Like, what is it for?
It's actually supposed to function in exactly the same way as any other menstrual cup. So you're supposed to be able to keep this in for your period as you would your Diva cup or whatever menstrual cup you're using. And then it's supposed to have that added bonus of being able to have sex while you're on your period and wearing this, which you can't do with the Diva cup. But for me, that has not been the case. The reviews that I've watched prior to purchasing the Ziggy cup have been fairly positive. Some of them have had the same issues. I watched one very extensive review where the lady had exactly the same problem that I did, where she kept tucking it up behind her pelvic bone and it would always just pop back out and try to slip out of her. I know some other people who have tried it. I think there's like a couple of channels, or maybe just the one channel, where this group of girls really love trying out these different feminine products. And I know I watched a review with the Diva cup as well, and when they reviewed the Ziggy cup, it actually worked quite well for them. Like, they didn't have as many slippage issues. The only con that they had and that I had was that the insertion and removal is sometimes a little tricky and a lot messier for me with the Ziggy cup, because the Diva cup, it's kind of like the cup stays upright when you pull it out, so then when you're ready you kind of just tip it into the toilet bowl and it's fairly mess free. With the Ziggy cup, because you have to tip it down to be able to remove it, the blood is just streaming down your hand as you're taking it out. So I think that would make it more difficult to remove in public bathrooms.
So this is more of like only removing in the shower, probably?
Oh, for sure. Only removing in the comfort of your own home, and even then, just take a shower, because you're going to need it. your hand's just going to be blood soaked. I don't know.
Well, because we've talked about how with the Diva cup we love taking it in the shower because it's like, one, you can squat however you want to, there's more room, and then you can literally clean it with the water there. Great. So I'm just wondering with this one, if you're going to be dumping a bunch of blood on your hand because it's so meticulous to remove, it's like one of those things where like, I'm only removing this when I'm in the shower.
Yeah. I'm also suspicious as to how much this can actually hold, because the entire Diva cup is a very thick layer of silicone, so it's structured to maintain that shape so that when the menstrual extrusions come out, it just sits in the cup. But with this, I find that sometimes like it kind of just stays up in this crumpled position instead of having a place to deposit liquids. It stays scrunched up, and then the blood doesn't really have anywhere else to go except for through the sides.
Well, I think you're hoping that gravity and the amount of blood that's going in there would make it uncrumple.
That somehow does not happen. Like, I have a pretty heavy flow, and you'd think that if things are just gushing out into this cup, it would just hold this like disc cup shape. But instead of doing that, I'm getting like a smushed disc shape, and there's like blood in the middle of this. There's blood all along this rim, which causes different issues for cleaning. And there's blood on the underside. There's blood coming out of me. It's just a whole mess.
Well, of course, we think of periods, or I think most people think periods, like the blood is just streaming out at a constant flow, and it's not. So I'm wondering, while more blood you think would get rid of that wrinkle, maybe it's not coming out in big enough gushes in order to make an impact, so it's filling up but then spilling or like getting around the rim. And
I feel like that's just kind of a design flaw.
Okay.
Because again, there's like a groove all around the rim, which I think is supposed to help with flexibility and also a little bit of just safety, like trying to mimic that suction type of thing that was happening with the Diva cup. But it just hasn't really worked out for me. Maybe it works out for people where their bodies are more just better shaped to use this product. But then like there's blood that gets caught in the groove, and it just kind of gets gross to clean. Everything is covered in blood, and I'm a little disappointed.
So you might try it again if they came out with a new design.
Potentially. I keep going back to this every period for my heavier days to just will it into working. But so far I haven't had a lot of trouble. So far I've had a ton of trouble with keeping it inside my body. It just wants to come out. And if I'm literally going to be sitting all day long and just have zero movement, that's not an issue. As soon as I like walk for more than 10 steps, I can feel it just pop out from behind my pelvic bone and just slowly come back out. So it's not...
What's the price range on it? Is it worth people trying out, or do you think like the price range for it's not worth even that attempt if you think you have a smaller pelvis?
I think that the Diva cup is still the way to go. It's just much more accommodating. The vaginal canal is just a much more universally acceptable like receptacle for different shapes. The vagina is an amazing muscle. Yeah. Like it can just accommodate so much more, and trying to make a product that is dependent on that back of cervix to bone distance, I think might have been a flawed design approach.
Well, okay, so with regards to sex, because I think that's the draw for it, how did you find
it? Was good. I was very sneaky. I did not tell my partner that I had it in when we did the deed. He felt nothing. I think I was a little self-conscious because of it, because I knew something was inside of me. But I couldn't
just
really...
him.
Yeah, gross. I think if I was more comfortable with wearing the Ziggy cup on a regular basis, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. However, no blood escaped because that peen was like keeping this thing up there, so it was fine.
As long as you're not walking and having sex, you might be fine.
Like if you're not switching positions a lot, you'll probably be okay. But even then, like the penis should be able to knock this baby back into place, because it's not supposed to be in the vaginal canal. The penis is basically like doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
For our radio listeners, just hitting like the bottom of the cup, and it's soft there, so there's nothing really
it might be beneficial for people who want to have sex during their period and like literally are just using it for that.
Yeah.
Does it become a problem, because this isn't technically latex, it doesn't become a problem with condoms?
I don't think so, because this is silicone, so it's still like inactive as a material. You treat it the same way as you would a Diva cup in terms of like cleaning and stuff.
Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't like tear like condom?
I don't think so.
Didn't come across that, I guess.
No, because we're not using condom.
Oh, right. You were never using a condom with this because you were already like thinking baby?
Well, we're just not being super safe about it.
Okay.
Because like baby is like in the cards for us now. Yeah, so for sex it's fine. If you're the male, you'll probably not experience any major issues with this. But as a female, I'm like, just like don't use anything to catch the blood. It's fine. He can put on a condom if he's that squeamish about it, and just lay down a freaking old t-shirt. It's not that big of a deal.
That's also my thought. Like, I get that, you know, people make this product for the people who don't want to deal with like the mess that is your period during sex. But I'm like, if the person you're having sex with is fairly comfortable with you, I think just dealing with a period is fine. Or, you know, because I think it's a good thing to have sex during your period because it actually shortens your period, because it like the whole cramping and just pushing everything out, basically.
The suction.
Yeah, makes your period, aids to your period being shorter.
Yeah, the cramps. It's fantastic. Yeah. I don't know. Ziggy Cup, I'm going to continue to give it a try, but I'm not hopeful. The price is, I think, around $40 something. So it's not, and that was US, I think.
Same as menstrual cup then.
So it's not cheap, and I think that you're better off just going for a Diva Cup if you want something that for sure will work for your body. Okay, enough about that negativity. Let's move on to...
It does look cute, though.
It does look cute.
I do like the look of it.
I wish the Diva Cup could be, like, colored, because...
There might be some out there. It gets colored.
It sure does. It sure does. After that 1.5 year mark, ooh, really goes downhill. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was reusable pads. So I actually bought these because I did not bring my Diva Cup on a trip with me, and then I bought the Ziggy Cup, and the Ziggy Cup wasn't working, so then I had to buy something else. So now I have these reusable pads, and I have used these. And for our watchers, if you will notice, they are brand spanking clean. I don't know what kind of witchcraft went into this, but fabric engineers out there, you're doing an amazing job. It's actually like...
Oh, no.
It's such a strange material. It almost feels a little plasticky. The inside lining part that actually catches the blood is actually quite soft. It's like cottony, fleecy feeling. The outside
Loving the designs.
I know, it's very cute.
I love this arrow one.
This is just from Amazon. The brand is Langspree, and I do recommend this if you're squeamish about, you know, poking things up your vagina and you want a more sustainable method. I know there's also reusable panties out there. I haven't personally tried them, but I've heard good things about those too.
I think with the reusable panties, it's also good if you like just tend to sweat a lot down there.
Yeah.
It's not just for your period.
Yeah, and what I found with these... Kim is obsessed with these little designs. They're very cute. I got just like the basic gray and white package. They have more colorful designs. It's pretty cute. It makes it more fun to use. These are like the large size because of my heavy flow, but they also have different sizes for different needs. They have more liner types that aren't as thick, so that you're less uncomfortable when you're wearing these. They're a little diapery. I'm not gonna lie. Like, you don't want to be wearing leggings with these.
Well, the fact that you're like, this is diapery, and I'm still thinking back to like the pads my mom had growing up. Those were diapery.
Literal diapers.
These are still like pretty thin.
Yeah, so what I love about them is that, one, even with use, they maintain their pristine outward appearance. They're aesthetic AF. And they're very compact. Like, you kind of just fold them up, you use the little snaps, and they close up into like a little package, very nondescript. I don't know if you brought this out into public, if anyone would, like, everyone would just think, oh, you've got a little like cloth or something, like a little bag all crumpled up. They're extremely easy to wash. I think I hand washed these for the most part. I also threw them in the dryer, the laundry with other clothing. Didn't seem to affect other clothes whatsoever. Like, I didn't have period stains all over my other clothes when I did that. But for just convenience, I think doing a sink wash with these was perfectly good. They also dry super freaking fast.
So no dryer? Are they even allowed to go in the dryer?
I never put these in the dryer. I just air dried them.
They dry so fast.
But essentially, it took maybe like one night to dry, which is insane. Again, witchcraft. Like, how is this material that is like padded as well able to dry so fast? I know, like, with this, obviously is going to dry. The more plasticky feeling fabric that is mainly waterproof, but holy heck.
The middle, for sure.
Yeah.
How long do you think you could, because this is the large size, how long do you think you could have this on you when you're on a heavy day? 4 hours? How much do you think it holds?
I think on my heaviest day, I probably needed to switch out every 4 hours or so. Honestly, though, that was more of like to appease myself. I think I could have kept it in for longer. I never experienced any type of leakage when I was wearing these, and let me tell you, when you go wash these out, you get the full extent of how much was trapped in here. Because when you have this on, it feels dry all of the time. There's never like you get to the point where it starts feeling wet against your vagina, because I think that's what they're trying to avoid, obviously. So it always feels very dry. It's comfortable. Of course, sometimes you get little gloopy bits that come out, and like, who can blame the pad for that? That's your own fault. But when you go wash these, it's just like you're squeezing it and you're squeezing it, and it's just like non-stop blood flow. And it's insane. Mm-hmm. It's insane how much these capture. I'm very impressed with this item. For a lot of people, thinking about Diva cup or Ziggy cup or any type of menstrual cup use might be a little frightening to start off with. But if you
especially
still
if you're
wanna...
someone who's only been using pads, it's a really big thing to... Because I know, like, my journey with pads and then tampons. And since you're pretty comfortable with tampons, you're like, oh, this is just another thing I'm sticking up there. Yeah. But if you're trying to make a sustainable choice, and you're like, I'm really not maybe at that point, and maybe this might be good for starting out younger
girls.
Yeah, when they're first starting their period. So they're still getting that sustainability part, but you don't necessarily just want to be like, here, put this up your vagina right now. Even though before you talked about this, it's like, I'd kind of want them to start there if they could. But
I think this is an awesome choice for beginners or people who just don't want to deal with sticking their fingers up their vaginas. And they're so cute. I saw so many designs, Kim. There are so many out there. It's very, very cute. The only thing is, obviously, these are not going to be the best choice for travel. The Diva cup is bae when it comes to travel. It's just so small.
Boy, is it.
It's so, like, non-fussy.
Got its own little pouch.
Yeah, so, like, these ones, if you take them traveling, I could foresee you having issues with having to bring enough. You're going to have to wash them basically every night.
And if you're at a hostel or Airbnb's more private, but...
Yeah, and these do kind of smell after you've been wearing them for a while. Because it's like they're thick, especially if you're wearing them in the summer. It's going to get a little sweaty. All your fluids are kind of like out in the open instead of
and that's
caught.
Like that's like pads.
Yeah, exactly.
So it makes sense.
So in that regard, they're exactly like pads. But I'm just overall really impressed with how well these work, how fast they dry, how clean they look. I used all of these, Kim. None of them look used.
And I was full on touching them. I didn't care.
Yeah. I mean, we're very open with each other. So.
We are, that's true. I was also touching the Ziggy cup. Like,
yeah. Well, I'm not using this right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Do you think you would ever try something other than the Diva cup?
The Diva cup just does it all.
It does. It really does.
I wish I had known about these maybe for my mother. Or they had come out, like, I don't think she needs it anymore, you know, menopause. But that might, because she never wanted to do tampons, it just wasn't kind of her thing.
Yeah.
And so this would have been probably a nice alternative for her. Because we grew up with cloth diapers for at least most of the kids. I don't know what she used on me. So it's not like she's opposed to cleaning out something and reusing it and stuff like that. So I think...
That's great that she used cloth diapers.
For me, I like the idea of, like... Maybe I would do the period underwear. That would maybe be the other thing I'd try. Because again, like, I need new underwear at some point, so it's not like I'm never going to use it, even if it's not perfect for my period. I would use it for sweat control during the summer, that kind of thing. So that would be kind of cool. But I don't think I need the Ziggy cup because, in my opinion, it's just not as good as the Diva cup, guys. Let's just say it outright. It's not as good as the Diva cup. The draw for it being like you use it during sex, I'm like, just
take it out. Just take out the Diva cup. It's not that big of a deal.
But that's obviously our opinions.
Yeah. Oh, I did want to mention, so I got a pack of 6 of these, and I think it was around $20. So, I mean, these aren't going to go bad or have to get thrown out anytime soon. So I think if you have a child who is going through this stage in her life, this is a great way to just start them off if you don't want to start off with the Diva cup.
And that's half the price of the Diva cup / menstrual cup.
And you can just reuse these over and over and over. Think of all the money you save. Pads and tampons are so stupid expensive.
Stupid expensive and bad for the environment.
Yeah. And every time Instagram tries to show me a sponsored ad for, like, pads, I'm just like, get this out of here. Why is this inappropriate? Flagged.
My eyes are burning. Get out of here.
Does not apply.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm glad you tried out these things.
Yeah.
I'm just someone who's all like, I don't need to try out anything else, because I've been super happy with my Diva cup since.
Honestly, this was out, the Ziggy cup was out of major curiosity, and the reusable pad was out of necessity because the Ziggy cup wasn't working. So.
And your husband has Amazon Prime.
Yes. Fantastic.
So got him real quick.
We did. Okay.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Nudity. If you want to listen to this episode and other episodes, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast, probably. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram at Nudity Podcast.
Use sustainable menstrual products, everyone.
Bye.